Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Skull Session Recruiting Podcast, brought to you by BuckeyeHuddle.com. I'm Mark Givler. I have Kevin Noon with me here again today. It's a commitment episode, and it's a big one, and it's an early one, but it's a big one still. Class of 2027, Huntington Beach, California quarterback Brady Edmunds is a Buckeye. Edmunds been a regular in Columbus over the past 6 months, visiting again for the Michigan game. Is a Buckeye. Top maybe 10, 15 player in the class right now, super early. So, we'll see how the rankings shake out over the next few years, but he is trending very early as a potential 5-star prospect. He is a 5-star composite prospect right now. He is a top 10 composite prospect right now in the 2027 class, and coming right after getting Jameer Brown, a 5-star wide receiver from Huber Heights, Wayne, Ohio in the 2027 class. So unbelievable week if you're interested in Ohio State's underclassmen recruiting. Kevin, I don't think we were shocked by this. Brady had told me recently that this was going to be something that happened. He was going to commit somewhere by the end of the calendar year, kind of after a season, getting probably into December. So, maybe a little early, but then maybe if he thought at the late December or whatever. But still, a huge get for the Buckeyes, regardless of whether we saw it coming or not.
Yeah, Ohio State took care of business with the visit. I mean, he's made, as you said, it's not his first time to Columbus, but everybody wants to get at least that one game day atmosphere type of situation, and picking the game obviously was, the right backdrop, as Ohio State had a monster recruiting weekend with that. Huntington Beach, not a program that I was familiar with growing up in Southern California. I went to Irvine. We did not play them. I'm certainly aware of Huntington Beach. Just a really good-looking kid out there. I mean, already, 6'5", 215 is what he's listed at. That makes him about like a foot taller than Julian Sayin, according to fans. I mean, just a big body, has some room to fill in. But what I found really interesting was the schools that were kind of trending at the top of his list. None of them were the California schools: Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Texas. Now you got to play defense on him, and the fact that he has made so many trips to Columbus, and I would expect those to continue. I'm not here to sit there and say, within minutes of the commitment coming out, watch out for this one. But, I feel pretty good about it sticking, but it's a couple years out. I mean, last I looked, it's still 2024. So, it's a hot minute.
Yeah, they're going to have to hang on to this one for 2 years, but this is a kid who I think almost sought out Ohio State to an extent. He was on their radar so early. That usually doesn't happen on a kid from California unless he is kind of seeking out, like, hey, you're a school I'm interested in. So this was kind of a deal that, I don't say fell in their lap. They had to work at it, but like this was a natural fit. Brady Edmunds, really a big fan of what Ohio State's done at the quarterback position lately. And so made several visits to check things out. Multiple fall visits. Like, this is just, he did all the right things, showed all the right signs you'd want to see for a kid who is fully invested in being a Buckeye. So yeah, 2 years, I know a lot of things can happen in 2 years. We've certainly seen this in the past. So I'm not sitting here and just telling everyone that every 2027 commitment they get right now should just be like ironclad, but this one feels really good. Quarterback, need to lock in your spot. Like, there's a lot of things kind of going in here, but let's roll the tape and let you guys get a look at him. As Kevin mentioned, really big body, tough kid there. Just look at him standing there and take that hit and deliver the ball. But yeah, just a big kind of prototype quarterback frame, and he can move, folks. Yes, he can. He can run. He is mobile. He's not a quick twitchy guy like what they've had in the past, like with guys like, Braxton Miller, or even like a JT Barrett, who was probably more quick than fast. This Brady's a little more fast than quick. I mean, he can really, he's almost like a CJ Stroud when CJ wants to run type of thing, where people get surprised how fast he is when he actually gets out in the open. He kind of has those long strides, but a much more willing runner, I think, than maybe someone like CJ was. But a big time arm, big time frame, toughness, leadership. He's a great kid. I've had a chance to talk to him several times already early in the process. Very mature beyond his years. So really, just I mean, quite frankly, everything you would want in a quarterback. And now they're going to show you some tight window throws. I mean, right, kind of splits 3 defenders there with that throw. They're going to show a back shoulder here. I mean, he's got the whole arsenal on this film we're showing. So if you're listening to this, you may want to check us out at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. But just a guy who, I don't know, just reminds me of kind of that prototype, hey, what do you want your quarterback to be? Well, I'd like him to be 6'5". I'd like him to have some mobility. I'd like him to be accurate. I'd like him to have a strong arm. I'd like him to be tough. I'd like him to be a leader. It's like, well, check. So I think this is a huge pickup. The fact that they are able to pair him with Jameer Brown right now, if that stands over the next 2 years, there's really no reason to think it won't, but if that stands, that is a dynamic 1-2 punch. I mean, what an incredible way to start your 2027 class, to have a 5-star quarterback and a 5-star wide receiver committed. How much easier should that make life on the rest of the offensive staff to go out there and add more receivers, add offensive linemen, add a tight end, even add like defensive backs who get to go against this in practice every day. This is a big-time tone setter for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I mean, when you build a house, you have to build a foundation, and this is the foundation of the 27 class. And obviously, we've seen quarterbacks come and go in classes before. Dylan Raiola was a Buckeye before he was a Bulldog, before he was a Cornhusker. But, everybody's got to come to their own decision and what's right for them. And, I've not gotten the kind of, vibe from the Edmunds camp that he is looking to bounce around or anything like that. Now, of course, if things change, if the Ryan Day haters get their way or something like that, all bets are off at that point. But it is. I mean, one of the biggest points as we were getting ready to record this was that I was going to just hammer how important this is for continued recruiting in this class of 2027, because it is a lot easier. And Ohio State has shown that you don't have to be limited to just one 5-star receiver in a class. Ohio State's going to continually keep churning through guys, whether or not it's that they run out of their eligibility or they go to the NFL or they transfer out or whatever. In the previous class, you're going to have Chris Henry Jr. in the 26, provided all of that sticking, which I expected to. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's going to be easy to say, come on board and use 24 as a roadmap. Carnell Tate is your third receiver. Carnell Tate, that could probably be starting at 98% of the colleges across the nation. Ohio State has shown a way to be able to feed everybody in a year where teams are doing everything humanly possible to limit Ohio State's offensive possessions, and everybody's still getting a chance to eat. So I think it's big, but of course, let me throw the one wrench into the system. What are they going to do at 26? Because now you have 27. And they still haven't necessarily determined what they're going to do at 26. And I'm not trying to hijack the piece by going into that. But, I think that I can hear people watching the videos like, yeah, but what about 26? Is this kid going to reclassify? Well, he's still really young. We've not had any conversation. And I'm not necessarily a huge fan of quarterback reclassification. I think that being the right physical age in line with your collegiate years is important. But nobody asked me.
You hijacked my segue, but yes, that's what we were going to talk about next. Is you're going to how, I won't say concerning, but I guess I'll say concerning. I can't really think of a better word. How concerning is it to have 27 before 26? Does that hurt you in 26? Because now whoever you're trying to get in 26 is looking in front of them at Tavian St. Clair, looking behind them at Edmunds. Just your thoughts on that and what that could mean, I guess, for their 2026 recruiting efforts, because they are going to try and take a high school kid and I know people are like, well, just take one from the portal. Well, that typically doesn't really help, because then you're just taking a veteran. So it's not helping your roster spacing any. All that's doing is cluttering the top end of your quarterback room. So I'm not saying they'll never take a transfer quarterback again. I'm just saying that their goal every year is to sign a high school quarterback. And then if they have to supplement that with a veteran transfer, they will do so. But in terms of getting a high school kid in 26, this does make things a little interesting, doesn't it?
It does. I'll go back to something I've said for years. And if Mark had a nickel for every time he's heard me say it, he'd at least have $20 by now. elite competitors are not afraid of elite competition, but there's so much mobility in terms of transfers and everything at the quarterback position that I don't think that a quarterback should necessarily be that put off by it. You've got a year head start on him, and you'll know if you could come in and suddenly cement your spot, and then you're not really going to be worried at that point. Now, does Ohio State certainly back in the Jared Curtis sweepstakes? What happens there? Does Curtis want to come into that room? Being sandwiched between Edmunds on one side and St. Clair on the other. I don't know. Does Ohio State look to stay in state with like a Nathan Bernard, who probably had a lot of dreams of being an Ohio State quarterback and might be a little bit more patient? I mean, and not to say that Curtis would be impatient, as I know that every word we say gets scrutinized left and right and trying to find meanings that are not there. I think they're going to be fine for landing, a quarterback in 26 that they want. Could it freeze them out on some top end guys? Maybe, but I think it just comes down to the level of competition. Because guess what? If you're a 26 quarterback, you're still going to have to compete against the 25 quarterback and the 24 quarterback. So nobody's coming in 26 into a program knowing that they're the anointed one. And if you are being told you're the anointed one, they're probably lying to you.
I do think the current landscape bodes well for Ohio State to still get a really good quarterback in 2026, just because the freedom of movement players have right now. You can go into a situation and you can compete for 2 or 3 years. And, look, if someone else wins the job by your third year and it's become kind of clear to you that I don't know if I'm going to get my shot here, you've had 2 or 3 years of really good development at a school that's put a lot of quarterbacks into the first round of the draft recently. And you can go somewhere else and you can be the guy, and it, kind of no harm, no foul for anybody at that point. So I think the freedom of movement now that players have makes this an easier task for Ohio State. But I do wonder, as Kevin kind of alluded to, they will continue to recruit Jared Curtis. Like, I'm not saying they're not going to recruit Jared Curtis, but if they're not able to get Jared Curtis, would they go with a Nathan Bernard who's, a little more, I guess, raw in terms of the competition he plays? Like, mechanically, he's making strides. He's got a basketball background, so he's a developmental guy, but with some really high end qualities. Would they go with someone like that in state, or would they continue to kind of star chase nationally, maybe see what's going on with some of the other top quarterbacks who've committed elsewhere? Because we got to figure some of those guys probably aren't going to stick. There's going to be coaching changes. There's going to be things that happen. So I think they've got time too. I wouldn't get too worked up about it. CJ Stroud was a late ad. It's not always, the early commitment or a guy you need to have a year in advance. Sometimes you can wait. Sometimes you can get a late bloomer. Sometimes you can get a flip late in the process. Dwayne Haskins was a late flip. So there are things you can do here that aren't super urgent. You can continue to kind of follow your process and do your evaluations. And I would look at this almost as a positive thing. It's like, well, you can kind of stop panicking about 2026 because you've got St. Clair arriving on campus and you've got Edmunds committed. So now it's kind of, I would almost argue the pressure's a little bit off now. You've got these 2 great quarterbacks. It's like, yeah, we're going to just stick with our process on 26. We don't have to reach for anybody. We don't have to like speed anything up. Let's just continue plugging away here in 26. So I look at this as a positive thing. But we'll see how things all play out. But again, huge pickup here. You cannot start you cannot start a class better than what Ohio State's done here in 2027 in down the stretch here of the season. You cannot. This is just a special start for 2027. And now it's like, okay, let's go get some defensive players. Let's go get some offensive linemen. But they have got a great, great foundation here. And again, USC struggling right now. Brady Edmunds out there in Southern California. Receivers everywhere. You can trip over a receiver on every block in Southern California. Maybe release Brady Edmunds into Southern California and maybe bring some guys with him. I mean, that could definitely be you've now got Chris Henry Jr. and Brady Edmunds out there committed to the Buckeyes. This could get interesting in Southern California if USC continues to struggle as well, Kevin.
Yeah, we've gone as far west as Arizona for the Southern swing. If we have to go to California, we're not driving. I mean, we'll drive in California, but we're not driving to California. Maybe we can take the train or something. I don't know, because
Get a
that
mud
just
skipper from somewhere in suburban Phoenix to LA
I mean,
or Irvine or something.
yeah, there's always a lot of talent in California. I mean, we do always have the argument about the hierarchy of states in terms of turning kids, and North Carolina has really moved into the argument, along with Texas and Florida and Georgia. Maybe California has lost a little bit of its street cred, but I mean, there's still a ton of kids out there, and I put some of it on SC and UCLA kind of being down some of these years, and this Pete Carroll isn't out there maximizing these kids the way that he used to. So Ohio State always seems to do a good job of finding weakness, whether or not it's the premier program or every program is not as strong as they should be, and Ohio State's national brand moves in and plucks off 3, 4, 5 kids. So I'm gonna go in with my bold prediction. We're gonna call it a 1-pointer. Ohio State will land at least one more California kid in the class of 2027.
All right, there you have it. That's a good ending point. So another huge commitment for Ohio State. Just all sorts of excitement right now on the recruiting trail going on at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So check us out over there for more inside information on Ohio State recruiting, and obviously a great time to be an Ohio State fan with everything going on the field right now. So get over there at BuckeyeHuddle.com, $4.99 for your first month. Going to take you well into the playoff at this point. Like just go for it. Just give us a shot, and reach out to me if you have any questions or comments or concerns. I'm on Twitter at Mark Givler, and we will see you soon, I'm sure, with more recruiting news. But thanks for watching and listening.